Good morning and welcome to A Morning Practice. I'm Simon Greer, and that's Tom Scott, the co-founder and chairman of the Nantucket Project. And we're joined today by Tom Shadyac. I couldn't be more excited to have Tom Shadyac on the show. We met at TNP last year. We spent a little bit of time together, and every word out of his mouth, I was just like, oh, tell me more, tell me more. That's so awesome. So we're so glad you're here.
That was actually the name of a radio show that I did for a short while. Tell me more.
Huh.
Uh, yeah, and I felt the same about you, Simon. It was a joy to sit down with you. You're curious and crisp and alive, and I appreciated our time together.
Thanks. I was about to say, by way of introduction, you have like a boundless curiosity yourself about people, about the universe. You're also a filmmaker and a director and a storyteller and a super generous philanthropist and a prophet and a sage and a lot of other things. But we're glad you're here.
Thank you. I call myself a philanthropist, though, Pissed, because I've discovered some things about that philanthropy that I'm trying to reprocess and reprogram in my own life. But yeah, I do think that when we stop learning, we start dying. I think that we are programmed to continue to grow and to expand. And once that stops, we start, like the still pond, without any movement, we start to die.
I have a lot of churned up feelings today that I was excited to talk to you about, but I thought it might be nice just to start with a basic gratitude. So maybe we'll go to you first, Tom, and love to hear something you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for this time. This time is an incredibly challenged time, of course. It's a time of crisis. Crisis, of course, means to shake out the dead leaves, so to speak, and to reveal what's important. And for me, it's been like a refiner's fire, starting to reveal what's important. As challenging it is for the neighborhood that I'm blessed to work with, an underserved community in Memphis, Tennessee, I think something's being born, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. And what about you, Tom?
Well, very specifically today, I'm thankful for rest. I slept over the weekend. I haven't slept in 3 weeks. And I've just been, driving to Florida and back, and just all the stuff I've been through in the last few weeks, which a lot of people have. So that there's nothing unique about that. But I feel a little alive again. I have clarity again. And I would say that happened in the last 12 hours, and it feel much better.
That's great. Yeah, related, I guess, to what both of you said, I think, and maybe Tom Shadyac, you'll help me through this on the show, maybe I feel a little more ambivalence or even guilt about the clarity that Tom Scott mentioned or the rebirth that I'm seeing. Like on Saturday, where we're staying, there's like a grapefruit tree down the road, and we picked grapefruits and made grapefruit juice, like fresh grapefruit juice, with my kids. And there was something so basic about it. Like, fruit comes from the earth, and we can make it into something so simply by squeezing it and enjoy it. And the time with my kids and the simplicity of that, I think, was a source of great gratitude and appreciation. And then also some strange guilt of like, I'm here squeezing grapefruits, and like my hometown of New York is in the middle of, the worst it's seen in 20 years. So trying to fully feel grateful, and also it felt a little tied up with some guilt. So I think that's on my mind today.
Yeah. Being raised Catholic, always recovering. I've kind of pushed guilt aside, and I don't find it for myself an effective or efficient feeling. Feeling the pain of a neighborhood, feeling the pain of a community that may not have resources in this time, that may not have food, that lives paycheck to paycheck, and those paychecks have stopped coming. That to me is where I want to move now. I want to continue to open up to compassion. But, guilt for me as that recovering Catholic was always kind of an oppressive emotion that I'm doing my best to do away with.
Yeah, I find it certainly it's stifling. It's not like a creative feeling. It's not generative for me. I keep noticing it like nagging at me, and maybe, and it's tied in with some anger too, I think, honestly, which I hope we can talk a little bit about, because I feel some like bubbling anger at like things I'm reading and the situation. And I usually feel like I know what to do. And now I don't feel so clear, maybe in a good way ultimately, but I'm struggling with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing this time is revealing. There were 5 meditations at a spiritual mystic named Richard Rohr. A lot of Judeo-Christian people are following him, and one of them is that we have little control. We have no control, and it's a really hard thing to understand because our society is all about control, control, control. Control your job, control your income, control your emotions, control. And the truth is, as this time demonstrates, we actually have very little control over everything. We can obviously control our reactions, but we certainly can't control outcomes. And it's something that, again, I think we've been programmed to think that this is what a successful life is. And I believe it's in letting it go, you become free. You know, there were a number of other things that you're not important. That's one of the other meditations that he had. You're not important. You think like, yeah, you're important, like in one sense, because you're a very unique iteration of whatever the divine energy is, but you're not important. It's not about you, right? It's about something else, something larger that moves through us, that moves through all. So it's really a disassembly of the ego. And this time is very instructive about that.
Yeah, in that spirit, maybe we'll go to our just 3-minute meditation and sit together, and then we'll continue discussing.
We're going to start with a brief sound meditation. So just soften your gaze. You can even look down towards the floor. Notice your breath for a moment, anywhere in your body where it's easy for you to notice it. So that could be at the base of the nostrils. Can be gently moving in your chest. You might even feel the breath moving all the way down into your low belly. Allow your attention to float from sound to sound. And all together, I'm going to invite in a long breath through the nose for 4 counts. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the mouth. Good. One more like that. Breathing in again, 2, 3, 4, and exhale through the mouth. This time, we're going to exhale with a long, extended just on one tone. So your tone might not match mine. So breathing in nice and full. Thank you so much.
It was nice to sit there with both of you. Has anything come up for either of you while you were meditating that you that's worth mentioning?
I'm good at the short meditations. The longer ones, I haven't quite broken into that yet. There's one I'm doing now, which is an old monastic practice. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am.
Yeah.
Be still and know. Be still. Be.
Yeah.
And that just sort of breaks it right down into being, which is grounding.
Interesting. Yeah, I was meditating on Tom Shadyac, what you had said about control, and sort of like thinking, oh, the meditation is a place to let go a little of thoughts come, but I don't have to hold on. And it gave way in a really interesting way to a sense of connection. Like I thought, being here with Tom Scott, which we now do daily, and then reconnecting and seeing your face, and I have an image of you in my mind, and there you are again, and I felt the way connection allows, for me at least, control to fade away a little. It's like, oh, I'm connected to these other people. I don't have to be driving quite so.
That's what the mind is doing. I believe when we're starting to meditate, it's saying, don't leave me, like, don't leave me, man. Like, and that's how transcendence happens. You drop into a space beyond space and time. And then there's that expanse.
Thanks. Let's pull out our journals, if you don't mind. We'll take just 2 minutes and just write a little on a piece of paper, or a pen. If you keep a journal, Tom, feel free. I'll just time it.
And when you journal, what is the focus of the journal for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Tom, do you want to say a word about the focus of Tom Scott of how you journal? Might be interesting.
I have a methodology, which is I do gratitude. And so there's 32 lines. So I do 32 things every day. And then I write intention, which some may read as prayer, and I'm okay with that. But and then for me, it's just reflection, and it can be just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my method. And that's when we do this on the show, I just think of it as reflection of any kind, whatever's there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we'll do that for 2 minutes, and then we'll discuss. Okay, if you're still writing, finish up your sentence. And then Tom Shadyac, what did you write about? What did you reflect on?
Well, first I took Tom's lead and said I'm grateful actually for Tom and that intro because it was such a reminder. I've journaled for years, but it was such a reminder the importance of that practice. The line I think we got wrong in the Constitution is the pursuit of happiness, and happiness is not a pursuit; it's a practice. And journaling like this is part of that pathway to a more content experience of life. But I also clued into the word intention because I believe you said the word, or Simon, you said the word intention. And it's a word I think that's misunderstood. It means to be in tension. It doesn't mean what we just did, which is to drop into a very peaceful space. It's to try to bring about something and birth something in the world that doesn't exist. So if my intention is to be more peaceful in the world, I know I'm going to have to come up against my own anger, my own disquiet. And so I would like to declare an intention that we would be willing to be in tension. And what I also wrote down is this idea, because I believe that we're having to fall into spaces and learn things that we don't know. And the only way to learn something you don't know is to admit that you don't know. If you don't admit you don't know, then you'll never know what you don't know. So I'm hoping we can enter that space of being in tension, and you edify me by things that you're aware of that I'm not aware of, and if possible, I may be able to bring a perspective as well.
Tom, I love the idea of happiness as a practice. Do you have a daily practice that you do? Like, do you wake up every day to set time and do a series of things to help you in that pursuit, to help you support that practice? Or do you move around and kind of do things differently?
Well, when I'm on my game, of course I'm human and I do a little bit of, of the opposite of what's best for me. But generally I enter a space called Lectio Divino, which is divine reading. This morning I read a poem from Mary Oliver about going to Walden. All of her friends say, Mary, go to Walden. You're going to learn something. It's a quick green visit. You'll come back wiser. And she says, it's not so simple. It's about the slow and difficult trick of living and finding it where you are. And so I'll meditate on that. I want those things. I want to not just read that word, but that word to become a part of me. It's an old Catholic saying, a Christian saying, and the word became flesh. And I believe that words, as Maya Angelou believed, are things. And so I want those things to become a part of me. And then I'll do a short meditation. The one I'm doing now, I already shared. And then I start the body flowing. So I do something for the body every morning. I'm doing 100 pull-ups every day now, and a quick 100 push-ups, and just changing that up as much as I can, especially while I'm, we're all in quarantine.
And then I'll start pull-ups?
Not in a row.
Okay.
I'm up to about 17 in a row.
Still pretty good.
Good.
It's all right. I'm getting there slowly. Yeah.
Thanks. Tom Scott, anything you journaled about you want to share?
Yeah, I do. It's amazing what I wrote about. So the book of John opens with, in the beginning was the Word.
Wow.
And the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Okay, that's how it opens. And just contemplate it as literature, because some people get uncomfortable with,
sure,
okay,
absolutely.
fine, but let's just think about it.
Metaphor.
Yeah, sure. And what I did, Tom, is I wrote down I'm not going to tell you the other name because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I had you at one end of a spectrum, and I had somebody at the end of a spectrum. And it was basically the conversation that we had over the summer around, let's say, capitalism, if you remember.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. And Tom made a point, and these are my words. I don't think you use these words, but if there's one freak in the room, as defined as the person most outside the norm that dominated the room, it was you. It was Tom. And his statement was essentially about that ultimately capitalism will find humanity because it doesn't really have a choice. Like, it's going to find it. And as long as it's in opposition of it, It will always be unhealthy. It's just sort of the nature. This is how I'm paraphrasing what I heard.
Sure.
Anyway, so I wrote that out, and then I wrote down that that's kind of what the word is, right? That's the word. It's an observation of the truth of something that's going on. And one of the things that I thought, I said this to my son the other day. I was like, in the book of John, it says in the beginning was the word, and sometimes the word can come in the form of an illness, like a message. It's a kind of a message. Yes. Now I'm going heavy here, and I'm not saying it's good news, but maybe it's true that I think there's actually a direct relationship between what you said in that room this summer and where we are right now. Like, I think of those things as very interconnected. And as you were speaking earlier, which is another thing that's kind of blowing my mind right now, I too am Catholic. I was raised Catholic. And I definitely have some percentage of myself that I am in big trouble with the big man, because the big man doesn't let you get out of line. And I said this the other day, but Sister Ann Frederick, 4th grade, told me that when you sin, it's going to be like putting your hand on an electric burner for eternity. And that sticks with you no matter what. Like, it just does. Not a lot, but there's 0.5% of that that's still in me, and I'm a Catholic. And one day I learned about Lectio Divina from the point of view of Catholic mysticism, right? And Catholic mysticism falls way outside the bounds of what I just said. And I did it. I practiced it time and again, and it was really powerful. Like, really powerful what I experienced through that whole thing. Anyway, and the fact that you just brought all that stuff at this time, I just wrote about that.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing.
Wow. Well, I don't see that as an accident. God's way of remaining anonymous. And again, we use the word God, but it's not in that dogmatic sense. It's in the sense that we need a name for some force that has put all this in motion.
Yep.
But that's, that's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I just, like I said, first thing I did is I wrote down this is the spectrum I wrote down.
Wow.
And I had you at one end and this thing at the other. And in the end, here's the thing I was going to say, and I appreciate one of the other things you said, Tom, because I think you're right. But I was going to say this because I thought about it, is like, I kind of know you were right, but that goes against what you just said. You can't know. It's not knowing. But put it to you this way, I think that there was like a semblance of reality there, a semblance of truth that was so powerful. And here it is a few months later, and capitalism has been really like devoured by this. And not entirely, but certainly been brought into check. Like, hey, Mother Nature can play a game here. Mother Nature knows how to do things.
Yeah. There's no question that it's all one thing. It's all the same thing. And until we understand it, we're going to face this and worse.
Yeah.
Out of bounds of the way the rules of life and the structures of life and how life thrives. We're just out of bounds. And look at the poison that is happening now in the midst of this. Now, there's a lot of beauty, of course. Spending time making fruit juice is a beauty. What you just shared is a beauty. But masks that were 85 cents are now $4 to $8 to $12, right? These are masks that can save people's lives, and we put a price on it. And ventilators now, the states are negotiating what's the highest, who can pay the most. If that is not a dis-ease that is so apparent, and if we don't as a species tell a different story and reject that, it will come back. It will come back. So the things about capitalism that I think we'll hold on to is that competition is kind of cool. Like it culls excellence, right? Kobe just passed this year, was a competitive guy, but boy, we love to see like him in competition with other great NBA stars to see, who was the best at clutch time, et cetera. It was a beautiful thing. But when we add to the winner belongs the spoils, no native indigenous culture, which had a tribal wisdom and a sense of community, no native culture allowed the hunter who was the best hunter to keep all the meat and then say, let's see, I'll decide who eats today. It was brought back and it was shared. He might have gotten some other reward, some great appreciation, some trinket, this is a deeper conversation, I think, than is happening. We're going to get through this, but I think the worst thing that could happen is that we try to return back to normal.
I worry about that at night all the time. I think, man, I don't want to go right back. And Yeah, if I'm honest, I am as susceptible as to going right back as anybody. I'm not, but I think about it a lot.
There's so
Yeah.
much you both said that I kept on jump in. No, no, let him go, let him go. I think, Tom Shadyac, you started by saying something about intention. And I feel like you give us the gift often of being willing to say something that may create tension. I find it so bizarrely comforting, like seeing you and thinking, oh, he's going to teach something, he's going to provoke us in some way. I feel at ease around it. So I just want to express my appreciation to you for that. I've been thinking about, and you just said it, I wrote it in here, you said it beautifully. The problem isn't with the essence, let's say, of capitalism, but somehow we've tied it with greed, and that they're the same, or one defends the other. And so, to the winner goes the spoils. How we're letting prices on those life-saving things go up it's hard for me to like almost spiritually fathom, how is that actually happening? And the thing I was really writing a lot about this weekend was about essential workers, and that the more essential you are, the more put upon you are right now, but not the more compensated. And I don't understand how that's not working right in the system. There's more demand for their labor. The supply is more limited. The cost of it should be going up. But home care workers are still making $13 an hour. And my work, much less essential. I can do it remotely, in isolation, in safety, and I'm still getting paid what I get paid. And the system is broken in that it is allowing that to happen. And if that's pure capitalism, then there's something in that system that is not working.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. Let me say that ultimately the system is us. So we're broken. There's a part of us that's broken. It's the first thing Mary Oliver, the great poet who passed last year, said to me. This world is broken, Tom, don't you? Now, of course, the world is not. She means us. The world is having, lived on 13 billion years of intelligence, 4 billion years on this planet. But we are a young species. So it's not the system, it's us, and we create a broken system. And that's what I was so, quote, radical, which means root, Tom, up at Nantucket conference project, which was beautiful, was that we were talking about systems a lot. And I wanted to talk about us. We're not going to have a mechanistic answer to this. It's going to be a moral answer. Who are we? Is that morally acceptable? Do we honor that? And we do now. We honor that people are charging more for their masks. Nobody has said on television, that is a practice we as a species must now put aside. And we put these things aside by no longer honoring it. Jeff Bezos is the richest man in America by the story we tell ourselves. I don't think Jeff Bezos is the richest man in America. Thoreau said, when is it we agreed to the appearance and not the reality? I think the richest man in America is someone like Father Gregory Boyle, who runs Homeboy Industries, who's been at this work for 30 years. I just met him. There's a spirit of peace about him, of pain as well that he carries. That man is rich. And when we literally embody these stories and we live these stories, the stories in our culture will change. But we start here, and with conversations like you guys are doing with the Neighborhood Project, and we have to change the story. And again, until that happens, this is going to be it's going to be on rinse repeat, but those repeats are going to get even more intense.
I think one of the things that we do, I've been talking about disinformation this week. We were talking about Russia and China, the different things that are going on right now. And then combine that with information overload is that we become reductive because we do it sort of as a way to get by. And certainly that's how media carves it up for us. You think about, as you were talking about Kobe, for example, my challenge is with consumerism more than it is with capitalism. And if you ask yourself the question, should I teach a man to fish or give him a fish? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can do both of those things. And that in every moment, like we bring forth our best self. I saw this great thing on within sort of the Judeo-Christian ethic. Is it conservative? Is it liberal? Is it Republican? Is it Democrat? And the answer is yes. Like
Yeah.
it's all in there. And if you want a simple answer, you're looking in the wrong place. And
Right.
if you want everything to be reductive, you're just kind of wasting your time and energy.
Well,
But
the
then
solutions certainly are not reductive, but the moral principle is reductive, which is we're in this together. I mean, that saying is coming up to the surface. Like
yeah,
if there's one person not healthy now in our communities, as wealthy and gated as they are, we're not healthy.
yeah,
And so the reductive principle is there. We're in this together. We're a family. We're connected. Like that's real. That's a real thing.
yeah.
And now the solutions.
Tom, I observe that also, but I also feel like the more reductively clear we are that we're all in it together, that also unleashes forces that are afraid of that truth. And so actively organize against it, right? Like, oh, it's a Chinese virus, right? Or, oh, there's some conspiratorial other behind the scenes that's set this out against us, or that the bare truth of how connected we are also leads to people wanting to say, no, 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 we're not that connected. We're better separate.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a radical idea that's a bit in the mystical side, that it's all God looking back at us. So even the idea of against is not an idea that the mystic moves forward with, right? So there's a saying, I just wrote about it in a previous script called The Shepherd. Do not be for or against. For and against are the mind's worst disease. Why would I not be against the person who is saying Chinese virus? Because I realize it's God before me in her myriad disguises, seeing if I have embodied wholeness and looking at the human species. I see the note you're playing. You're playing the low note in the symphony. I will play the note that embraces the Chinese, that embraces them as family. So thank you for your note. I don't hate you. I don't agree with that point of view at all. I see you. I know you. You are me and I am you. Like it's the non-dualistic way of looking at it. That's why the virus itself is not outside of us. Like it's us showing up in another form to say, are you listening? Can you stop? I mean, my goodness, the clips of what's happening in the world, of nature returning into the city streets, and how we could blend that in the future if we just stop and listen and rethink. So it's all us, right? There's no division, right? God is one. Again, not to use an incendiary word, but it's this unity, right? We come, even science's most precise and accurate at the moment reading of what happened at the beginning of time is one infinitely small point of light or energy, boom, and it becomes everything that is. So it's always coming from one, from many one, right? It's in our design. This ego is what keeps us in space and time, right? Like I'm Tom, this is a different Tom, you're Simon. But that's why we go into meditation, to transcend that ego. And we know we don't want to be led by ego, right? We don't honor that, right? Even today we don't. I mean, we do, unfortunately, practically, but morally we don't want to honor ego. But that's the trick, and that's the transcendence. And again, we're understanding it now very practically. Oh, you mean a market in China which somehow got hold of an animal, likely a bat, that was, again, human beings disturbing nature, disquieting nature, where these viruses very oftentimes and most times live in stasis. But we disquiet nature, it manifests, it expresses itself, and now it's in us. Holy smokes. I got to think about my chain interconnectedness with all of this chain person in China who might need better conditions at a market. What world conference can that lead to when we say, hey, we now realize, look at this web, we're connected, right? Like it's all kind of coming up and bubbling at the same time. Understand, life wants to beget the conditions for more life, so it wants us to understand. It doesn't want us to go away, I don't believe. But if we have to, we will. If we don't understand, and then something else will manifest.
I am like filled with wonder though, because I just don't know where any of this goes. You know, it's just hard. It's hard for the first time in my life where I feel like, what's what I said earlier about Tom. What Tom said at the event was crazy in the sense that the odds of everyone following Tom out of the room saying, hey man, we're going to follow Tom. Well, now they're following Tom, whether they know it or not. You know what I mean? It's freaking crazy. It's crazy what we're witnessing here. So that makes me hopeful.
In an insane world, the sane person will always appear insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, again, it's following the principles that animate Tom. It ain't about me. Like, I'm following these principles as best I can, imperfectly, but the principles are there. They've been told to us for generations and generations. And we honor these people. We just don't do what they say. And we think that they're idealists, and they were realists. You know, I've quoted this before to you. Einstein said, our moral leaders were geniuses in the art of living. Our moral leaders were geniuses in the art of living. That's a scientist telling us that these people who told us brotherhood, sisterhood, community, family, oneness, that is science, and that is practical, and that's how we move.
Tom, I was thinking about everything you were saying, and there is a way that this moment that we're facing, it strips away a lot of the illusions about what we value, right? Like, we came away for spring break for 2 weeks with our kids, so we only brought enough for 2 weeks, right? So I have a closet full of clothes at home, but I've got like 3 shirts. So that's what I have, and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I actually don't even think about it very much, right? It's just like, it's stripping us down a little bit to the essentials.
There are these instructive moments that have happened to me and others in Southern California because we have wildfires. And a wildfire can happen like that, and you literally have a matter of minutes to get the things out of your house that you feel are essential. And it teaches you real quick what's important. Of course, it's all about your family. It's all about whatever's living, quote, living in that house, an animal, a pet, and maybe some of your journals, you know, maybe those things that are your heart. And you go and you realize, yeah, I can, that's it. Like, and it's so interesting to me now and wonderful to watch people living a different life now. They're on their porches doing yoga. Right? As you said, they're making fruit juice with their kid. There's a whole society that we could create based on yoga on porches and fruit juice and more of a playful community-based life. But we, as you said, we don't value it. If we valued it, we'd put value behind it and we would support it.
I mean, and to me, that's the needle to thread, the path to walk right now, is to not diminish that pain, and that we need to take seriously its truth today and the conditions that made it so disproportionately true in some parts of our country, and the learning that we can all take. I'll just close with this. You said the thing about how we like to be busy, and I remember the first time it dawned on me that saying I'm busy, someone says, how are you? I'm busy. It's really me saying I'm important. Right? And that's really what busy means in our society, right? It means valued. So anyway.
And let me offer this.
Yeah.
That thing, that needle that we're threading, I believe is the same thing. The importance of taking care of that community member who is hurting is the same thing as what the new world is going to look like when we rebirth it. It's the same thing. It's actuating now in one form. Let's get healthcare to people. Let's get them so that they can get tested and treated for free, because we're all interdependent on their health. And that, interestingly, is the new path. What we did in this crisis moment is instructive for the new way.
As they say, from your mouth to God's ears.
As the non-dualist would say, maybe the same thing, although, anyway. And you are God's ears, my friend, in front of me. So thank you for listening.
Such a pleasure to spend some time with you. Keep in touch.
You too, brother.